So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead and create a new project, and we're going to basically go over the basics of menus. I know in class we talked about them, but I just want to make sure that everybody got it because we had so many issues with the emulator there. So I went ahead and configured my emulator similar to what you guys are dealing with in class. That way you can see exactly how to do it. So start a new project. I'm going to do an empty activity. Now, right down here, let's go and change the name. I will call this just menu. I'll put an S there, menus. I'm going to use Lollipop for my build. The reason why is because I'm going to be able to access 85% of the devices that are currently out there. And then I'm going to click Finish. It's going to take a second for it to build. Okay. Now, your guys' system may take longer. Mine goes pretty quick. As you see here, I'm already live and ready to go. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to create an options menu. Now, if I were to launch my program, my app right now, my emulator, currently all you're going to see is the hello world, and then I've got my title bar up here. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and make my options menu have my three little dots right up in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my XML. I'm going to go to my Java file, and I need to bring in an onCreate options menu. So if I right click here and I go to generate, override methods, I can actually type onCreate, and I should have options menu. And there we go. Now, inside of here, to have something display in our menu, all we have to do is type in the word menu, .add, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 sets of numbers, and I'll explain what each one of them are in just a moment, and then I'm going to follow it by the text that I want to be displayed. And of course, a semicolon at the end. Now what this is the group ID means that these are going to be all grouped together under one umbrella. And then under that umbrella, each item has its own unique ID number. And that's the second number. The third number is in the order in which it's going to be displayed. So if I do this, okay, and let's change file to edit. And if I change this to help, now if I run this, change the order as well real quick. If I run this, what the expectation is that on my app, I'll have my 3 little dots right here. And I should be able to click on it. And now I have File, Edit, and Help. Now let's try this out. Let's make sure that it works correctly. If I change this order number to 3, and then change this to 2, launch it again. Now if I click on it, notice it says File, Help, Edit. Exactly in the order that it's supposed to. 1, 2, and 3. So let me go ahead and change this back to 3, and then we'll put that back to 2. Okay. So now what's going to happen is that there are going to be times that maybe I want to show some activity on these buttons. So if I click on one of them, I want to display a message saying that file was clicked on. Or what I could do is I could click on help, and it'll show that help is clicked on. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do an on options item select. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and right click generate override methods. Again, you can just type it in on options, item, select. There we go. Now if I go in here, the first thing I'm going to need to do is this is going to give you my menu items. So I want to go ahead and do ID. Whoops. Create an integer first, and then we'll call it ID. And in this ID, what we're going to get is actually one of these three numbers. So now I want to call item because I'm passing that into the method from within here. Dot. We want to get the item ID number, correct? There we go. And then just a semicolon. Now this can be done two ways. The first way is you can use an if statement. You can go if ID is equal to ID, or I'm sorry, is equal to 1. Then you can do your toast dot make text. Inside of here, we're going to use this. File has been selected. Okay. Then afterwards, go and do another comma. Then we need to specify how long that we want the message display. So we're going to do long, and then of course last, we want to show that message. Then you can do else if ID is equal to 2. I'm just going to copy this information here. There we go. Change that to edit. And then the last one, you can either do an else or just do the else if. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that. That way we make sure that we are selecting the correct values. And then change this one here to help. Now if I run this app, my expectation is that I will have the 3 buttons there. I'll be able to click on them. And if I click on File, File has been selected. Come down here to Help. Help has been selected. Now I said there are 2 ways that we could do this. This would be one way. And so I'm going to comment this out. And you can go up to your code. And if you see there's one that's called comment with line comment, I'll comment all that out real quick. The other way to do this is with a switch statement. And this is probably the most common way that you're going to see it, because you're dealing with an integer as an input. Now when dealing with switch case statements, you can only use integers, character, or string. So since we have an integer, we can just do it that way. So our first situation is case 1, case 2, and then case 3. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to copy this first statement out. And then at the end of each one of these cases, we have to put in the word break. Because if you don't put break, it automatically will go to the next situation until it does find a break. So again, we're just going to copy. Hopefully you guys aren't copying. Most of you guys should be practicing typing this to get the muscle memory. And I'm going to change this to edit. And this last one to help. As you can tell, as I run this, the output and the way that it operates does nothing different. File has been selected. Help has been selected. Edit's been selected. So as you can tell, performance-wise, it doesn't do any difference. This is more of a preference which way you would like to do it versus somebody else may do it. but be aware you can do it both ways. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to do this with a listener, because right now there's really no listener that's being done. It's just basically if the item is clicked on it, then it's going to do something. Most everything that we've done so far has some type of listener involved. So the first thing we're going to need to do is go ahead and call in MenuItem. And so I'm going to actually just modify these. I'm going to put MenuItem. I'll call this MI1 is equal to that. MenuItem MI2. If you haven't noticed, my naming convention basically is all I'm doing is taking the first initial of the object, and if it's got a second word, then I'll implement the second letter as well. And then MenuItem 3. So now I have 3 different items here. Now what I'm going to need to do is I want to go and create a listener for each one of these. First thing I want to do is call my item, my object, dot, and then we want to do set on MenuItemClickListener. Now inside of this, we're going to put in the word this. Now I know it's going to come up with a red squiggly. That's okay, not a big deal. Go ahead and do the same thing for MI2. Put in the word this. MI3 dot, oops, dot OnClick. Put in the word this. Again. Now to fix the little problem here, we need to implement this on MenuItemClickListener. But what we're going to do is come up here to the top. If I can spell implements, and then we're going to type in MenuItem dot OnClickListener. Now notice now I got rid of the error down here, but now I've got a new error up here. So if I'm going to click here, then what I want to do is I'm going to implement my methods. Come down here, and as you can see, now I have a new method that's gone on MenuItemClick. So again, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to put that in there. Now, of course, ID is going to give me a little error because I don't have an ID in this method. So int ID equals, same thing we did before, item dot get item ID. There we go. Here what I want to change is the text. Instead of it saying file has been, we're going to change to file listener has been selected. And I'm just going to copy this, paste it in there, paste it in there. Okay. So I've got those 2 items. I've got my listener working. So now I'm going to go and run this. Here we go. Now notice I've got 2 messages that showed up, one right on top of each other. And the reason why is because I am literally running 2 commands at the same time. So what I need to do is come over here in my options item selected. We're going to change the switch ID real quick. And we're going to go ahead and comment that out. Now there's 2 ways to do it again. Like before I did the slashes here. Now what I'm going to do is if you go under code, you can actually do a thing called block comments as well. So it'll go ahead and block all that out. So let's go ahead and run it again, just to make sure everything's working the way we wanted it to, and we're actually utilizing the listener this time. So click that. Edit listener has been selected. Help listener has been selected. And of course, file listener has been selected. So now what we want to do is we've now got the menus to where I've shown you 2 different ways to have them put out some kind of a message. Either we can do an OnListener, and then the other way is to just use the menu items itself. So next what I want to do is go ahead and create a submenu for these. So let's go and go back up here to the top. So now what I want to do is create a submenu. So to start this off, we can just start off with submenu. And we'll call this SB. And then we're going to start off by doing menu dot. Now instead of just add, we're going to do add submenu. Now we're going to identify the group ID number. Again, we're going to start that off at 0, comma, 1, comma, 1, comma, quotes, and we're going to do file. Okay, and then I'm going to put a semicolon there. Next, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to comment this one out, and then I'm going to comment this out as well. So now what I want to do is let's come in here, and we're going to create a new M1 menu item listener. Okay, so let's start off with our menu item. Again, we'll start off with MI1, and we're going to do equals. Instead of doing just menu, we're going to do SB, because we're going to call the object SB.add. And then from here, we're going to give it an identification. In this case, 0, comma, 1, comma, 1, comma, and then we'll just put quit. Now, then we need to go ahead and turn on our listener, come back down here, and then I'm going to change this message. Quit listener had been selected. Let's go ahead and run it. As you see now, we've got file, we've got a little arrow here that says that I've got a submenu. If I click on that, now quit is an option. And as you can see, I can't spell, so let's go back in here and let's fix quit to where it's spelled correctly. Let's run it again. And here we go. We click on file and there's quit, and the quit listener has been selected. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to move forward. We want to be able to use the context menu. And basically what that allows us to do is we will select this hello world, hold down our mouse button, or simulate the idea of somebody holding down their finger on that word, and then we'll have a menu that pops up. So to do this, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and comment out this stuff so that way we don't get any interference. And that way nothing else is changing here. So to add a contents menu, the first thing we're going to do is come up here, and then we need to right click, generate, override method. And this is called onCreate contents menu. Press enter. Now, normally we'll go ahead and put this down below, but because we need this information up here, so we're going to leave that the way it is. Now we're going to go and add our menu items. I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to go like this. Oops. And I'm just going to paste them down here. Need to change this a little bit because we're just doing an add. And then what I want to do is I want to set my own header. So that way when they do click on that, it'll automatically pop up on the screen for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my menu again, dot Set header, do we need to do an icon? Hopefully you guys said no. We're going to do a header title. And in this title, we may say my list. Okay. So far, looks good. We've got everything we need here. But now we've got to create kind of a listener. And we need to go back to our activity main. We have our text view. Currently, there's not an ID to this. So we need to add an ID. And we'll call this text view TV. There we go. Now we got to switch back to our main. Come up to the very top here. Now we need to add on the onCreate. Now from here, what we're going to do is do our text view. And again, give it the same name, TV equals, hopefully you guys know, parentheses, text view. Then after that, we need to find the ID. View by ID. Inside here, we do r.id. In this case, TV. There we go. Now, for this to work correctly, we have to register for a contents view because the app has no idea. It knows that TV is involved. It knows that there is this contents view menu, but there's nothing that ties the two together. So what we have to do is we have to register it. Register for contents menu. And the view it's looking for is our TV. Then from here, what we want to do is we've got it to where it'll actually show a menu, but we need to have it be able to do something, or as far as give us an information to let us know that we did select the correct one. So to do that, we need to create, right click, go generate, override methods, and it's on context item selected. Okay. So inside of here, let's go ahead and cheat a little bit. We'll paste that inside. Take out the comment. Again, create your ID variable. One thing I just realized that I did is I actually have it as unregister for context menu. What we actually want is register context. So now if I run this, I should be able to click the word hello, and here it is, my list. If I click on file, file has been selected. Go down here, edit, edit has been selected. So you can see there's a couple different ways that you can do this. Now this has been more hard-coded in, but it's not really dynamic. Now there's another way we can do it by using the menus feature inside of the XMLs. So let's go ahead and take a look at that process. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to come over here. And notice here I've got drawable layout mini-map values, just like you guys did in class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click here, go to New, Directory. I'm going to call this one Menu. And go ahead and click OK. Now I have a folder called Menu in here, so I'm going to right-click, go to New, and I'm going to do a menu resource file. In this case here, I'm just going to call it my activity_menu. And then I'll just say OK. And if I look inside here, I now have an activity menu. Here, let's go ahead and add some items into our activity menu. Now, this activity menu may allow us to be more dynamic in our design. So the first thing we're going to do is do item, give it an Android ID. Okay, and we'll just call them items 1 and items 2. And then I'll go ahead and do the next one, which is, we'll call this edit. Actually, we'll just call it file first. So we'll go Android. And what we're looking for is title. And here again, we'll just call it file. If I could spell today, and that might help me out a little bit. And then from here, I'm going to give it an order and category. And in this order, I will give it a value of 1. And then I will go ahead and close that. And then basically that's my first item. Now I'm going to create my second item, call it item 2. Here, I'm going to change that, change this from file to edit. And then in category, again, leave that as 1. Is created. The next thing we need to do is go back to the activity main, because what we want to do is inflate this on our menu. So we're going to come up to the part where we've created our OnCreate option menus. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these. And I'm going to block comment these out. There we go. And now I'm going to call something called inflate. So I'm going to get menu inflater, there it is, dot inflate. Now I'm going to call my menu. So I'm going to do r.menu dot should be activity menu, comma, and then I'm calling my object menu. Next we want to do is, because we're going back to the OnCreate option menu, we need to go ahead and uncomment the statement here. Now we got to do something a little bit different in this case, because before we had case 1, case 2, case 3, where we were actually getting the IDs right from the menu add. But here we're not getting the IDs from there. So what we actually have to do is we'll call the actual object directly. So we'll do r.id dot, oops, item 1 r.id dot item 2. So now if we actually run this, as you saw before, up here in our options menu, I click it. We have 2 items that are here now. If I click the file, file has been selected. Go to edit, edit has been selected. So now you can see that we've actually made this more dynamic, because now we're being able to utilize the XML to design our menu options. You could do it either way as far as how you want to develop your application. Not one way is correct. And the reason why I show you multiple ways to do something is because when you're in industry, you'll find that not every programmer does something the same way. And so you need to be ready and be able to understand what the developer is doing in all cases. Next thing we want to do is be able to make it more dynamic again by adding a submenu to this dynamically as well. Well, it's pretty simple. We go back to our menu here, and let's go under Edit. And underneath Edit, I'm going to first get rid of this little close bracket. And then down below that, I'm going to close my item. Now in between this item, Edit, and the Close Edit tag, what I want to do is I want to put in Menu. Oops. Put in Menu. And notice it put me a close tag inside there. Now with that in there, what I can do is I'm going to copy this. And make a little bit of a change. There we go. And this will be called item 2.1. Actually, underscore 2.1. There we go. Now if I run this, let's change this to copy. There we go. So now if I run this again, I now have my file, I have my edit, and then I have my copy option right there, as you saw before. So again, multiple different ways to do the same thing. There's either you could hard code it in the Java file itself and use an OnAction or you can utilize the menu options and then create it dynamically. So let's go move forward to the next type of menu. So next menu that we're going to mess with is the pop-up menu. And what I want to do with the pop-up menu is basically go ahead and let's add a button so we can actually click on something to have the pop-up button come up for us. So I'm going to go back to my activity main XML. I could just go in here and type in my button. If you want to use the designer, you can come over here, you can grab your button and you can put it in. We'll do below Hello World. Okay. There we go. If I go back to my text view now, I've got my button there. And so now I can go ahead and let's change the text. We're going to call this pop-up button. We've got an ID. I'm going to call that BTN. Okay. Let's go and make sure that everything looks the way we want it before we go on. Okay, notice it automatically floated to wherever I wanted to because I didn't set any constraints for where it needs to float or it needs to be. I just did absolute pixel. You could actually edit that and modify it a little bit and change where you're going to put it. This is fine for what I'm going to be using it for, not a big deal. So let's go ahead and go back. Next thing I want to do, before we move out of this, one thing that I want to do real quick is to add my Android colon, and then we need to make sure that we do an OnClick, right? Oops, can't spell again. Colon. Android, there we go. And then do an OnClick. And in this case, we're going to just call our method click. Okay. And of course, we're going to get a red error there, not a big deal. So let's go back to our activity main. We're going to go ahead and add in public void click. And because we're going to be calling from the view, So we need to call view. We'll just put v in there as our variable. Okay. Now the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to call the pop-up menu option. Pop-up menu widget. Call that PM equals new pop-up. And the widget that we're going to be calling is this, comma BTN. BTN does not exist currently on this site, so the first thing we need to do is come up here and create button BTN. Okay. Right now the button is not available, so let's come down here real quick. We need to add button class to it. Button, oops, I'm sorry. BTN equals button find ID by view r.id.btn. There we go. Semicolon, and it looks like we're pretty good there. Let's go back down to our pop-up. Looks good there. So we're our golden. So now we're going to do PM dot get inflator, menu inflator dot inflate, and then again we're going to call our menu. Oops, r dot menu dot active menu dot oops PM dot get menu. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we need to create the listener inside of here. So we're going to go PM dot set on menu item click listener. Inside there, we're going to do new pop-up menu on click listener, and then we have a return false. So the first thing we want to do is, because we want to change this from false and make this now true. And then inside here, we're just going to put up one message real quick. And that message will basically say toast.makeText main activity dot this. Okay. And the reason why we're using the main, we're calling from the main here, comma. We're going to put in quotes, pop-up item is selected, in quotes. Then we're going to do plus, actually I'm going to put a space in there, plus item. Now before we did, you would do ID, but in this case, because we're calling it from the XML, we're going to do dot get title, comma. Again, now to display the information, toast dot, give it the length that it wants to be displayed, and dot show. Now, just like we want to be able to show this information, the next thing we need to do also is to come down here and be able to show the pop-up. So we need to do PM dot show. And we should be good to go. Let's go and take a look real quick. Click there, my button. Pop-up item is selected. And did you notice how edit came up? That's all there is to dealing with the menu's options. We've covered all three. We've covered contents, we've done the options menu, and then we also did pop-ups. If you have any other questions, feel free to give me a call or talk to me in class. Have a great day.